Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Finding Your Voice podcast. This is season 3, and I'm your host, Dr. Velma Bagby. Finding Your Voice podcast is a powerful path designed for everyday people, authors, entrepreneurs, ministry, and business leaders who have found their true inspiration and motivation for their assignment. Our episodes feature authentic and informative information and conversations that are designed to help others on a similar path. So, I want to especially welcome you back to this episode and introduce you to, or let my guest introduce himself. I have Chris Collier today. Chris, why don't you tell the audience about yourself?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I am a husband, a grandfather, uh, a pastor, a podcaster, and an entrepreneur as well. So I grew up in Michigan originally, and I moved to North Carolina, found my way matriculating to Nashville, Tennessee. And lately, I've been in Atlanta, Georgia for the last 20 years. 20 plus years. And I love what I do. I love helping people. Like you try to help them find their voice. I try to help them find their passion and purpose so they can find the true power they're supposed to walk in life. Because we're not here just to abide the sweet by and by until Jesus comes.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to overcome and conquer. So that's who I am. That's kind of what I do. And I have my own podcast, Conquer with Chris,
Mm-hmm.
and where we help people find their kingdom mindset for leadership and business.
That's awesome. Well, let me tell you, the audience, a little bit about why this came to be. I had worked in state employment for 38 years. And after retiring, and working for an organization like that, the only voice that you carry and that you speak and that you write about and that you use is theirs. And so when I left, I felt the Lord tell me that I needed to write more about dating and relationships in terms of that leads to marriage. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what direction to take to do that. And that was when I realized that I had kind of a corporate laryngitis, which is what I wrote a book about. When you don't have a voice at all, I couldn't speak my faith. I couldn't speak my opinion. I couldn't speak anything. I couldn't write it. It was all about the corporate voice. And so finding your voice came about because I had to discover what God had for me to say. And it sounds like there's something similar to what you're passionate about, that people have to discover their passion, their ministry, and their role. And that was what I had to do. So I began my this journey in 2018. I retired in 2012. I began this journey in 2018. And so 8 years later, 28 books now, and 20 plus bestsellers, all because I had to discover what I needed to say and how God wanted me to say it. So I can relate to what you're saying in terms of finding their voice, uh, discovering their passion and their ministry. So your information says that you're also a branding expert. How do you help a person discover that? What do you do?
Well, it's funny that you say that. First off, the thing we have to do is it seems see people think that they choose their destiny. You
Hmm.
discover it, right? You discover your purpose, the reason why God created you the way you are,
Hmm.
and um, how to how that helps other people in this life, right? So,
Hmm.
and then you have a passion that's married to that in some way. So you can
Hmm.
find all those connectors. Then you can find what you're good at, right? So branding is really something that is very personal, and we take our time to find out what it is and how it works for you. Because some people, if you notice, some people have very basic branding. It looks kind of like white on black, or
Right.
black on white, or white on black, and it's
Yes.
very basic. Some people have very ornate designs, very ornate logos.
Hmm.
And so it depends on you as a person, and depends on whether you who you're called to reach. So,
Hmm.
and that's just the logo. We're not even talking about your mission statement, your vision statement. All that's
Yes.
important because that tells you who you're supposed to reach and how you're supposed to reach them. So
Yes.
we take our time, and branding is really just who you are, who do
Mm-hmm.
you help, and how do you help them.
Okay. I love that. Who you are. What do you have to offer? What was the second one?
Oh,
Who you are.
who you are, how do you help people,
How do you help
and
people?
in
Yes.
what way do you help them? So, like, you can have an offering like a course, right?
Mm-hmm.
That isn't a way you're going to help people. But you can also have one-on-one coaching,
That's right.
or you could have one-on group coaching, or you could
Yes.
have conferences, summits, whatever they want to call them now,
Mm-hmm.
in person and in virtual.
So why this topic, Chris? What's your expertise in this area? What led you to this?
Well, after um, mine was a little bit different years. So I grew up. How I got the word conquer, because I used to go. So going back to my childhood, I used to watch WWF back then. Now it's WWE. Um, we used to watch it, and I'd see Hulk Hogan, the Macho Man, Andre the Giant, all these guys. Be
Right.
like, God, how come I don't have a name like that? Right? I'm just Chris Collier, just
Mm-hmm.
Chris Collier. And he said, "You're the conqueror." I said, "Okay, I'm running with it." So
Oh, wow.
all my young teenage years, and I ran with that to the place where in my late 20s, early 30s, I trained for a while to be a pro wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I worked out. I did the whole nine. I took training until it became too expensive to go to, because becoming a pro wrestler is not cheap.
Wow.
And I got to run into some people that ended up becoming big, but I decided not to go down that path because it was just too expensive. But it taught me some quite a bit,
Right.
and this is what it taught me: is that you are what God says you are, right?
Yes.
Um, so he called me the conqueror, and that stuck. I have friends who call me up and they go, "Hey, what's up, conqueror?" And to this day. So you have to stay connected to the source,
Yes.
God, Jesus.
Yes.
You have to stay connected to that, because if you don't, then what will happen is you will try to brand yourself as something you're really not.
Mm-mm.
I know a guy
Mm-mm.
who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars, and his branding is pretty much spot on, but it's just a little askew because he hasn't tapped into who God says he is yet.
Yeah.
And you can do well and you can be successful, but we don't want to just be successful. We want to create significance.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that has to deal with all this thing, all the things, all the trials you go through, all the things you
Yeah.
go through, being homeless, being displaced in during Corona, all this stuff, right? All this
Yes.
stuff happened, and at the end of the day, you can't get upset about it, because I heard this saying a long time ago: you can
Mm-hmm.
be bitter or you can get better. You can become
Right.
the victim or the victor. You can't be both.
That's correct.
So I've learned this in time, and you can cry about what you don't have, but be at the end of the day, is you should be thankful for what you do have.
Yeah.
And because you think about this, a lot of times they say God is the father.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a parent and their kid is like always crying about what they don't have, they're less likely to give that child something new
Right.
than the child that's, "Oh, I'm so grateful that we have a house. I'm so grateful that I have a bedroom. I'm so grateful." You want to give that kid everything. So I try to focus on the gratitude.
Yes. Well, this interesting what you said because my guiding principle is Proverbs 3 and 6, and specifically in all thy ways acknowledge. In the original language, acknowledge means to invite in. And so I want to ensure that God is always invited in to every decision concerning what I do, what he's called me to do. So my second podcast is Dr. Velma Talks, and it's specifically about dating for marriage and sometimes marriage. Now, God has blessed my husband and I this month, 52 years together. And I remember when I began writing, he told me that we were around 40 years in then, that he said more people need to understand what it takes to get there. and you have to be able to talk about it. You need to talk to those. How did how did my husband and I meet? And I wrote a husband to be prayer list. And I met him 2 weeks later, not knowing that he was going to be my husband. God had other plans too during that process. But I'm just saying that God said, take what you know and what you've experienced. What you were taught back in the 50s and 60s are not being taught anymore. Make sure you take that message back. And so that's what I began doing. And then I realized that when I wrote that book about corporate laryngitis, I figured that that needed to be its own separate place, which is why I decided to create Finding Your Voice. But I wanted to say my guiding principle, when I forget to use it, when I forget to go back to my source and my wisdom, my God himself, that I'll find myself in a place where I'll have to stop and start over again. I'm writing my husband and our book about our lives, 52 years together. So I'm writing the book, and I began writing, and I didn't stop to ask God, how do I approach this? God, what do I do? What content should I use? I was busy trying to meet the deadline. This is an example of what you're talking about. I was busy trying to meet the deadline, a mistake I try not to do, but I did it this time. And so I got a tap on the shoulder, and sweet voice whispered, this is not what you're going to release. You need to start over. I'm going, what? Then I realized the mistake I made. I didn't stop to ask, and I had to admit that and confess, and God, I'm going to start this over, and I'm going to do it exactly the way you called me to do it. So we can save ourselves a lot of time if we just stop to make sure that He's leading us every step of the way.
That's so true. Like I think about, at church we just went through Joshua and the Battle of
Uh huh.
Jericho and the Battle of Ai
Uh
right
huh.
after it. And one of the things that
Don't say
we're
AI.
oh I,
I'm
I
just
love
teasing.
I love AI, but I use it. But anyway, the city of AI.
Hmm.
The first problem. This is what most people don't teach or preach. Is the first problem was Joshua just went up to AI without asking God, what should we do?
That's
He
right.
just said, "Oh, it's a small town. We're going to send three,
Yep.
4,000 people up. It'll be okay."
Yep.
And they got beat because they had done something wrong at Jericho. And once again, is you always have to go back. And the most important part of your scripture is actually verse 5, right? Lean not into thy own understanding in
Yes.
all thy ways. You
Yes.
gotta learn that we have a tendency to lean on our own understanding.
That's right.
So we have to humble ourselves and go to
Hmm.
God, because God God is it's so funny because like when we think we're going through life and we see that as we age, things tend to look different to us.
Yeah.
God looks, he's at the beginning, the end, and in the middle at the same time.
At the same time.
Because
Yeah.
he's not in time. He create time is the reason we know God loves us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you know that? Time is the
Yeah.
reason, because the angels who fell, they didn't get any time
No.
to repent. They were
No.
sealed in their decision.
That's right.
God gave us time to operate.
Mhm.
So these are the kind of things we talk about on my podcast. It's kingdom mindset, right? How do we apply God's rules, God's principles in this life for leadership and business, so that we come out on this side and the other side with a winning formula?
Right. That's correct. Well, both of those verses are my favorite, but I honed in over time. They've been my favorite for years, but I honed in over time that one word, acknowledge. If he's not going to force himself into any situation, if he's not invited, he's not coming. So it's important for us to know we have to invite him in. Well, Chris, you know what? We can have a Bible study, but testimony session by the time we finish with this, because we understand what it takes to do what we need to do and what we've been called to do, I should say. So you say in the information I got, you're a personal branding expert. You are a YouTube authority. Please tell me a little bit about that, because that's the area I believe I'm the weakest right now.
Okay, so YouTube is a great way. Think about this. How many people want to have, raise your hand, Semi-passive income, semi-passive income. So when you create a video or a podcast and you
Hmm.
put it on YouTube, you've done the work once and it stays there for you forever. I have 8,100 and some odd subscribers right now. I have over 1 million views, which
Wow.
yeah, which is critical. So what do? Think about the way you think about SEO for a blog, you should think about similar for YouTube, right? You want to be a surface area. You want to build a surface area of content. So when people go searching for it, because YouTube's also a search engine for video, that when you start getting that content in, you're creating a surface area where you start showing up as the authority.
Hmm.
And so, you know, for example, your podcast, finding your voice. So, how to find your voice, where to find your voice, ways to find your voice in stress, way to find your voice in depression, way to find your voice. These are all things you should create podcasts, single talking head podcast, that you can do. And then you can also have other people come on and say, this is what I want to talk about. Can you help me with this? And you look at their skills and abilities and you say, this is how I need help. And you see if it matches up. And if it doesn't,
Right.
then you find someone else. But the thing is, you find someone who can talk to that, finding your voice in being homeless, finding your voice in uh, a disrupted marriage, finding your voice in a good marriage.
Right.
So all those things, right? Finding your voice while single. These are all
Hmm.
important things, and you could go on and on. But as long as you're using that finding your voice as your title, or 10 ways to find your voice, 5 ways how to find your voice,
Hmm.
all these things will help you gain surface area on YouTube and get you credibility. The other thing is consistency and
Yeah.
persistency.
Yeah.
If you're posting once a week, continue posting once a week. If you're posting 5 times a week, continue posting 5 times a week.
Hmm.
If you want to go from 1 to 3, that's fine, but don't go from 3 to 1.
Right.
That unless you're always going to be consistent with one from then on, you'll take a little hit. But um, the thing that I found that worked for me is I do what I call batch processing. I
Hmm.
pick a day, I do 10, 20, 30 interviews or 10, 20, 30 shows myself, or maybe just 5 or 6, whatever the case may be. On Mondays, typically, I do 3 to 6 uh, talking head podcasts where I don't do any interviews. And then whenever I get interviews, I do them and I just phase them in as I can. But
Hmm.
my ones I do by myself, I work those in and they are automated once I always have a blog tied to my podcast too.
Okay.
So that way the SEO juice will go to the podcast, but it primarily hits the blog. And same with the audio only for Spotify and iHeart and all that stuff. The audio only gets sent through the blog, but the blog is the primary hub of all information because you can't take away my blog. You can
Right.
take away YouTube, you can take away Spotify,
Right.
iHeartRadio, all that. But you
Yeah.
can't take away my blog unless I say something really crazy. So, and I'm not going to say anything crazy, but I'm just saying uh, that is yours. That's digital property you own.
Yes.
And so my suggestion to people is blog behind your podcast, blog behind
Hmm.
your YouTube channel. Make sure the keywords and the title you're using on YouTube are something that people are searching for and something that you can rank for. Because you do something like funnels, uh, funnel systems you should use, you're not going to track very well because of high
Okay.
demand and
Hmm.
everyone's searching for that, but also everyone's posting for that. So find something that's in your wheelhouse. Find something that you can be good for. Find keywords that work for you.
Awesome.
That's how
Wow.
you build a YouTube authority.
Wow, that's really interesting. You are really hitting some points I really need to pay attention to. So now you got me ready to go back and take a look and make sure that I have those key words in there. Chris, we are coming to the time when our conversation is ready to conclude. So is there anything you want to add, any information concerning how people can stay connected with you or even connect with your YouTube channel?
They can stay connected with me on most social media platforms, Conquer with Chris. Then go to my website, conquerwithchris.com. And it's always a pleasure to serve and help people find their passion and purpose so they can walk in real power and authority.
And do you provide services if someone wants to reach out to you to get your opinion about their YouTube channel? Do you provide those services?
I do provide coaching
Good.
and services. Yeah, they just reach out through conquerwithchris.com and
Awesome.
they'll have an opportunity there.
I'm raising my hand first. So I'm so thankful to God that we connected. It's been a while, but I've always been impressed with the things that you're doing. And then when Cyrus mentioned you, I said, oh gosh, I got to get Chris on the show. So I appreciate you taking the time out today. I hope you have a wonderful day. And everybody, you've heard it from Chris Collier. You know what you need to do if your YouTube is is slowly drowning, then you better reach out so that you can improve what you're offering, because what you may be offering is vital and important to your audience, but if they can't see it, can't find you, that's the problem. So I appreciate Chris for being here, helping us to understand what all of this means and why it's important. Have a great day, everyone. We appreciate you.
Thank you.